to harvest, to lead, to dream. Equity. Karibu member.
Good afternoon on the 23rd of June 2022, on a day when the 2022 Safari Rally is being flagged off at the KICC, and we do have a team there that is covering that story and so much more. Thank you for joining Lunchtime News. I am Nissy Imano. Lucy Maura is our sign language interpreter. Now, security agencies in Embu West Sub-County have seized counterfeit liquor and arrested 3 suspects at a home in Gatundu Village, Itabua sub-location. The 3 suspects were arrested when cleaning bottles in readiness for package.
According to the area deputy commissioner, the consignment nabbed included 13 crates of assorted liquor, 28 empty crates, 22 jerry cans filled with liquid suspected to be ethanol, a carton of bottle tops, and 2 rolls of counterfeit duty stamps. She also thanked members of the public for the information.
Through our officers on the ground that some liquor, illicit liquor was being produced in this area, and immediately we came here and managed to come into a building that you can see behind us, and actually we found the brewing taking place.
The police urged members of the public to keep divulging information in relation to acts of criminality in their areas to law enforcers.
They are the ones which are maybe maiming people and killing people. So we are putting them on alert that we are not on them, and we are going to take what we call police action.
Area OCPD Julius Chumbule said they will sustain the crackdown to weed out unscrupulous.
We would also send a word of warning to all those people that we know what they are doing, and most cases we will just catch up with them and take the necessary action that's taking them through the court process so that they face prosecution for what they did.
3 people have been arrested and are helping the police with information. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I'm Lilian Sana.
Moving on, the National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi claims Kenyans want to understand the genesis of the fallout between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. Speaking at funeral in Kericho County, Muturi said his attempts to find out the genesis of the alleged fallout had failed, and only the two can reveal the truth.
National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi was attending the funeral service of Mama Jane Tirop, mother to the former Bomet governor and Chama cha Mashinani party leader Isaac Ruto in Kericho County. Muturi using the platform to send a message to President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto.
It is wrong for President Uhuru to wait for tarehe 9 aende mapumziko kabla kuelezea wa Kenya what went wrong between him and William Ruto. Kenyans deserve to be told.
In Narok County, Kenya Kwanza leaders, led by Governor Samuel Ole Tunai and United Democratic Alliance gubernatorial candidate Patrick Ole Ntutu, committed to promote peaceful campaigns.
Mimi nataka kuomba wakaaji wetu wa Narok ambaye tuko na kabila 45 ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Ole Ntutu akichukua ushukani ya governor atahakikisha ya kwamba majamii zote ambazo wako Kenya wako Narok wataishi kwa amani, na kila mtu ako na right kuwa na properties hapa Narok na kuwa na mali yake na kuendelea na kazi yake.
Tunaheshimu wale wenzetu, wao si wadui, wao ni watu ambaye tunashindana tu kwa amani, na najua ya kwamba watu wa Narok tayari wameamua ya kwamba watachagua watu wa Kenya kwanza tarehe 9 mwezi ya 8.
Similar calls were made in Kajiado County, where Governor Joseph Ole Lenku emphasized on the need to uphold inter-ethnic unity.
Na mimi nawahakikishia nyinyi vile nilichunga timu yangu, hata nyinyi nitawachunga kama team Paris ndani ya timu leo. Hata hivyo kwanza umeona timu yako, umesikia gari ndogo, unaona yule MC hapa na wengine, watu wote mko mahali nafaa. Sasa tufanye kwa pamoja.
Elsewhere, the New Democrats Party founder Simon Gonjiri has urged the youth to be vigilant and avoid situations that expose them to misuse by ill-meaning politicians.
Huyu mtu unachukulia mawe ni brother yako, ni sister yako, ni cousin yako, ni relative yako. Ukichukua mawe uoge mtu na nyumba jioni mutakutana na yeye. After election munaingia nyumba moja. Sasa hiyo ni nini? Vijana wetu wacha tuwaelimishe, wawe watu wako na IQ ya juu, ujue huyu ni brother yako, ni sister yako. Tafadhali.
Vishoki Washira, Lunchtime News.
Talai High School in Baringo County has built a dispensary to serve students, teachers, and the surrounding community, as well as generate income. The school principal, Silvanus Cheptarus, said the facility will help improve service delivery in the region. Proceeds from the facility will go towards sponsoring the education of students from underprivileged backgrounds. Baringo Governor Stanley Kiptis also promised to support the school by employing a nurse and supplying drugs to the dispensary.
When we make savings from income generating activities, apart from infrastructure activities that we are able to construct, like this dispensary, the board also declare part of that money to support needy students who hail from humble backgrounds. This is an idea. We have been running the Talai Secondary School Bursary Scheme from the year 2016, and out of that program we have been able to transit a good number of students to the university.
Meanwhile, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition presidential running mate Martha Karua says the party represents progressiveness and inclusion of all, and no one will be left out of government if it wins the race to State House. Karua, who met leaders of Muslim organizations in the country, said Raila Odinga-led alliance is committed to correcting historical injustices and upholding human rights.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition presidential running mate Martha Karua sought to woo the Muslim vote when she met the leadership of several Islamic organizations at a Nairobi hotel. Karua reiterating the coalition will prioritize development and reduction of the national debt if it forms the next government.
There are certain basic needs, human needs, that each person ought to be able to access, and therefore the country must do these things for those who are unable to achieve them for themselves. And those things are shelter, they're food, they're the basics like water, education, all those things that you need for your life to progress.
Muslim leaders called for diversity and inclusivity in the next government should Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition clinch the country's top seat in the next general elections.
We are committed to electing leaders of integrity that will fight corruption.
We have taken a decision that we are going to support Martha with everything we can. We'll support her physically with everything that we have, materially with everything we have. We will campaign for her. We will vote for her as Muslims.
Can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women. and deprives itself of the contributions of half of its citizens.
Leaders attending the forum also made a clarion call for peace during the electioneering period. Isafar reporting for Lunchtime News.
The government has been urged to beef up security in schools located in areas affected by perennial banditry. West Pokot Governor Professor John Lonyangapuo says some schools located along the county borders have been affected by insecurity, a situation that has seen some of them lock the doors to learners.
Governor George Lonyangapuo has appealed to leaders from communities affected by insecurity to avoid making inflammatory remarks that incite locals. The governor says the government should be quick to deal with divisive leaders.
Kwanza huyu mwenye anaongea chafu kama hiyo mniambie jina lake, nitafute county commissioner ya West Pokot, nionyeshe address ya hiyo mkora, awekwe kwa boot ya gari, waulize ukoo yao ilikuwa wapi zamani, akwende anakonganisha wapi. Because that's not us. We want peace hapa.
The governor, who was addressing secondary school health drawn from the region, said security is paramount and learners must be protected. The county released a bursary worth 138 million, where 51 secondary schools from hardship areas with less than 100 students received 20,000 per student in the first tranche. All-day school students received 7,000 shillings each for a bursary.
Moving on, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, has embarked on the training of security officers on how to tackle electoral violence. NCIC Deputy Director James Ochola Akello says the security officers will play a major role in beefing up security after elections.
Speaking in Murang'a County during the training, NCIC Deputy Director James Ochola noted that the training will go a long way in ensuring security is beefed up in the country during and after elections.
We have a team of security officers from both counties because they are key. They are key when it comes to elections. They are the ones who provide security, and we felt that they need to have that requisite knowledge to handle election issues, offenses in terms of hate speech, electoral offenses, and the process of investigation.
Our role here today to assist the police officers in line of investigations or in to cover some certain areas or where offenses really need that directions or guidance. They need that guidance from the prosecution.
Akello urged the media to be responsible partners in the entrenchment of peace and cohesion by giving blackout to hate mongers.
It's good that even the peace forums that we conduct be put into considerations and not, or to the highlight, rather than only focusing on the issues of hate speech, which is just a component and a function, and one of the work of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission.
Jacqueline Masharia for Lunchtime News.
It is time now for our very fast break here on Lunchtime News, but don't go too far. On the other side of this break, I will be joined by a guest who will be helping me unpack the topic of food waste reduction. Don't go too far.
As the world gears up for the World Athletics Championships and Commonwealth Games, Athletics Kenya holds trials to get the nation's representatives at these global events this Friday and Saturday. Watch the trials live on KBC Channel 1 this Friday and Saturday. KBC, your true sports partner.
Unaitwa nani msichana?
Kawera, ex wa Makoa.
Ex wa Makoa.
Tutasemaje eski? Ukiseki kiswa yako hivi, uko na kiswa msuri.
Niko na kichwa msuri.
50,000 si utaandikwa hata kwa gazeti. Kama mwanamke anaona ako na mtu kama huyu anamtesa, mwezi mmoja afadhali atoke kwa hiyo mali.
Atoke akienda wapi? Run when you can. Sasa uko na miguu, kimbia. Otherwise sio atakufunja miguu.
Na unampiga.
Sichemupika, yeye ndiye anachipika. Yeye mwenyewe. Ulikuwa unakuja kuokoa maisha. Wewe ni ambulance.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Lunchtime News. Now, a clean energy project geared towards tackling climate change has been launched at Ichuni Girls Secondary School in Masaba South Sub-County, Kisii County. The project that has been funded by Equity Foundation will help the school reduce dependence on wood for fuel, meal preparation hours, and mitigate against respiratory diseases through prevention of air pollution.
Speaking during the launch of a clean energy project at Ichuni Girls Secondary School, Equity Foundation Associate Director Eric Nevasha noted the use of wood fuel in secondary schools as one of the biggest challenges to curbing climate change.
We realized particularly secondary boarding schools are the biggest consumers of firewood. And then we realized that the trees that we are planting and committing a lot of resources then will be in danger if we don't do something about consumption of firewood. And we did a research and found that schools in Kenya are consuming in excess of 1 million metric tons of wood per year to keep their kitchens running. Do you know how much that one translates to? Mathematicians. 1 million metric tons of firewood translate into cutting 12 million trees a year. 12 million trees a year being cut to sustain our education institutions.
Equity Foundation is also supporting afforestation initiative where 15 million trees have been planted within 2.5 years.
We have destroyed our environment through cutting trees for firewood. We have just planted 15 million trees in 2.5 years. 2 million trees on the ground courtesy of Equity, and I'm sure a few have been planted. I'm sure even some principals who are here could have been beneficiaries of the trees that we've been planting with schools and our communities.
Ichuni Girls Secondary School Principal Lucy Ambitha commended the foundation, terming it as a welcome change to the institution's lifestyle. Equity Foundation has also ensured learners' participation and witnessed consistent savings through recycling biogas into renewable energy sources. Efi Nyakidi for Lunchtime News.
Elsewhere, a community-based organization in Kilifi County has embarked on a program that seeks to provide free medical care to the elderly in the region. Kairat Hospital has so far enlisted 150 senior citizens and is looking to expand the program to reach more members who need the services the most. Kairat Hospital CEO Mohamed Mahfoud said they were touched by the plight of the many elders in Kilifi who have little to no access to proper health care.
Kama vile jinsi nilikuwa nasikia kifua changu sikii vizuri na kohoa, na hata nilienda hospitali nilipewa madawa, lakini hii ambayo nilipata leo niko na matumaini, nimeona dawa tofauti na hata zile nyingine.
Nimetoka nyumbani za tafuta madawa na shukuru nimefanikiwa madawa, kwa sababu mimi nasikia kichwa kuuma na mwili unauma, viungo basi nauma.
So what we did, we were actually, whoever comes within Kilifi County, we used to actually register them and put their names in our scheme, and they were treated. But then we realized if there is any function within Kilifi, maybe there's funeral, there is also wedding, people who coming from all over, So maybe from Lamu, as far as Lamu, Mombasa, when they come there, they are being told that if you are sick, you have a problem, go and to Khairat, you'll get free medication.
Sasa tunaona kwamba the number ina increase. With time, the number ina increase, wanakuja wengi sana wakitaka matibabu ya bure ambao wanasikia kutoka kwa wenzao kwamba ukienda Khairat na kama wewe ni mzee na umepitisha miaka 60, 65 na kuendelea utapata matibabu ya bure.
On to the day's business now, where Kenya is likely to bridge its current 400,000 metric ton rice supply deficit with the operationalization of the expanded Bunyala Irrigation scheme. The National Irrigation Authority has opened up the previous swampy farms for rice farming.
The Bunyala Irrigation scheme was started in the 1960s with just 500 acres. The progressive expansion works undertaken by the National Irrigation Authority have seen the scheme expand to its current over 3,000 acres and the number of beneficiaries grow more than tenfold from the initial 150 households to over 2,000 households.
Now from 2014 to date, we've moved that acreage from 1,334 to currently 3,126 acres, spreading across the Usonga sub-county and Budalangi sub-county in Busia and Siaya counties.
The project was conceived as a flood control measure.
We looked at what is a win-win situation. To control the flooding, with the land, we did our survey and we realized we have sufficient acreage and we can use the water that is up in the villages to be able now to do the irrigation.
The National Irrigation Authority undertook a survey to establish the suitability of the swampy farms, where it confirmed the soils and water was suitable for farming, setting up irrigation infrastructure in 2021. The National Irrigation Authority says the potential for expansion in the area is 2,000 acres, where already 600 acres have been put under irrigation infrastructure, and capacity building of farmers is ongoing in the 300 acres that have not been cropped, while farmers in the cropped 300 acres are already harvesting their first crop. The project has provided a livelihood to farmers who have been leasing farms from the main Bunyala irrigation scheme for years. Rice farmers hope that the project will go a long way in boosting rice production.
All right, it is time now for our interview segment. As I had mentioned earlier, I am joined by William Kamore, who is the content manager at LG, and we are going to be discussing matters around food waste reduction. Good afternoon, Mr. Kamore, and thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much.
All right, yes. So I don't know if you've seen, even before we delve into the interview, I don't know if you've seen the video that has been taking rounds on social media. This lady went to a supermarket and she bought a packet of unga, and it was so expensive that she was hysterical. So that is the current situation that we are at in this country.
Yes.
The food prices are so high.
Exactly.
So my first question would be, what is the role of food preservation?
Okay, so thank you for having me. So what I can say, the role of food preservation means that, you see, if you're able to preserve your food for longer, and not only for longer, and also stay fresher for longer, it means that you will be able to reduce your food wastage and also save on your money. Because if you can have, let's say, the food you prepared last you for even close to 5 days or 7 days, it means also the same, that you're able to save the money you had on others and also help to reduce the food wastage.
So what would be our food preservation options for us living here in the urban areas and also for people in the rural areas?
Okay, especially for rural areas. What I want to say is, you see, when it comes to food, actually, and food preservation, and from what we learned in our school days is that if you can remember the basic needs, which were food, shelter, and clothing. So if you are not looking for shelter or clothing, you're looking for food. And so one way of preserving food that we all know is even if you go through traditional methods, that's like smoking or even drying foods, and also into modern areas. Let's talk about freezing, and also talk about wrapping or heating. Like there are various methods that people can put into to help reduce your food wastage and also help preserve your food longer. So there are various options also depending on a rural setting or an urban setting, and various factors that one has to consider in this case.
So this is something I saw that I want to read for you so that you understand where the question is coming from. It says 10% of the world's perishable foods are the ones that are preserved. Okay, so that means 90% of the world's perishable foods, they become waste.
Yes,
we throw that away.
Exactly.
We throw that away. So that means there's a 90% of food that can be preserved so that we don't have some of these issues. It might not be a big solution, but it can help if the 90% of that food is preserved. So now my question would be, how many Kenyan households presently are using some of these preservation methods?
Hello. What I can say is, especially when it comes to, when we talk about freezing or refrigerators, we want to talk, LG is currently conducting a survey on how to help consumers get to understand the benefits of food preservation and also get to know the needs of someone who has a refrigerator. So what we found out is that when you talk about like now the modern way of preserving food, which is by use of refrigerators, from the survey so far we have about 74% of Kenyans do own refrigerators, and then from the other, but still from that 74%, again, like you mentioned, the 90% of food that can be preserved is still being thrown away. So we need to educate about even the people already with the food preservation methods, how best to go about it to help your food last for longer.
That is what I was going to ask you next. It's not uncommon to find people who have food in the fridge, but they've thrown it away afterwards.
Yes.
So why or how can we change that?
I'm sure either one of us, you've thrown food recently from the refrigerator.
Definitely.
Yes, so what I can say is, one is first getting to understand like the refrigerator you have, like what options or what features will help you in preserving your foods fresher for longer, and that comes like into the compartments that are there available, and also the features to help you preserve your food fresher for longer. So if we educate the masses on, if yes, I do have a refrigerator, but what other step can I go to help preserve my food fresher for longer? And so one, let me just give some few tips for the users. So like one, if you do have a refrigerator, so one is always wash your foods, because like you mentioned, the perishable foods, because that's what most people throw away, and that is like your tomatoes, and exactly the cost of tomatoes is higher, your vegetables and stuff. So first you need to wash them, and then there's also compartments that help you in preserving your vegetables fresher for longer. So if you are to put it in the vegetable drawer, it's actually there, and not place it on the door. Because again, if you place it on the door, it will be, how can I say, it will not be fresher for longer, and you find you're throwing your vegetables away after like 3 or 5 days. But if you actually store them in a vegetable box, and LG refrigerators are known to have such features like for door cooling, and also the vegetable box to help your vegetables even stay even up to 7 days fresher for longer. So that means you will have less perishable foods to throw away.
Okay. So that brings a very important point. How long should we store food? Because you can eat food from the fridge and get sick. So how do we know the time frame?
The time frame. So for the time frame, I usually say it depends on all refrigerators have actually 2 compartments, which is the freezer and the fridge compartment. If it's for the freezer, that can last, I don't know, it can last longer because it's actually frozen. But the major compartment is usually the fridge compartment. So if let's say if it's food you've cooked, I usually tell people like between 3 to 5 days. But if it's food you've not cooked, and again, depending on the refrigerator you have, I'd go with between 7 to 10 days. after those days, I mean, it's also a health hazard to you and also to anyone else who will consume it.
Okay. So now, most people going into a shop to buy a refrigerator, I think most people would want what they're looking for would be size and things like that in this, the newest one. But what should we be looking for ideally when we're going out to buy a refrigerator?
So I would say if you're in the market to buy a refrigerator, most of the points to look out for would be, one will be on the capacity. And again, like I mentioned, we are currently running the survey. So you can get the survey link on all of LG's platform, that's Facebook, Instagram, to help us get also the customer feedback. But if you're in the market for refrigerator, so one, usually check on the capacity and then also check on the energy saving, and that's most likely on the compressor part, because if I ask you, like, from all the appliances you have in your house, there's only one appliance that's always on power 24/7. And that is definitely the refrigerator.
Right.
So you have also to consider on the amount of energy this refrigerator will use.
Okay.
And then also factors involving around freshness, because that's the main aim of a refrigerator. So how can I keep my foods fresher for longer?
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. That's all the time we have.
Okay.
We have been talking to William Kamore, who is the content manager at LG. We have been talking on matters surrounding food waste reduction. All right, moving on, the government is collecting about 24 billion shillings monthly in taxes and spending 21 billion shillings on fuel subsidies, making it unsustainable. Petroleum Principal Secretary Andrew Kamau says this has drastically reduced tax revenue from petroleum products to a level where the government is barely collecting any tax from fuel.
Treasury last week announced plans to gradually adjust fuel prices in a move aimed at eliminating the need for fuel subsidy. In the latest monthly pump price review, the cost of a litre of super petrol, diesel and kerosene all went up by 9 shillings. Without the subsidy, a litre of super petrol would in Nairobi be retailing at 184 shillings and 68 cents, diesel 188 shillings and 19 cents, while kerosene at 170 shillings and 37 cents.
In countries that is happening, when we look at what the prices are elsewhere, they are on the way to 200. But in Kenya, for the last 1 year, we've managed to keep the prices as they are.
The Petroleum PS reiterated the government's position that Fuel Stabilization Fund is unsustainable in the long term. Through the kitty, the government has managed to keep the pump prices low over the last 1 year, but at the expense of other government programs that need funding.
Feasible. What it means is that other programs that should have been funded through the exchequer, for example, pesa za wazee, jamii, free school education, conclusion of roads that needed to be built, affordable housing, healthcare, all these things are going to suffer.
On Tuesday, President Uhuru Kenyatta signed the second supplementary budget that has earmarked 49.2 billion shillings for the fuel subsidy kitty. This is in addition to the 34 billion shillings allocated to the fund in the first supplementary budget. Kamau says the government collects about 24 billion shillings on petroleum products monthly and spends 21 billion shillings on subsidizing fuel.
Pretty much getting your fuel tax-free in Kenya.
The latest data from Petroleum Institute of East Africa shows that Vivo Energy, the retailer of Shell fuel products, has dominated the market share at 17.1% and local petroleum sales, followed by its rival Total Energies and Ruby's.
The top 5 oil marketing companies, which are Vivo, Total Energies, Ruby's, Ola Energy, have maintained their positions. There's been an increase in growth in most of them.
On dollar shortage, NCBA Group Managing Director John Gashora acknowledged the demand-supply gap in the FX market attributed to the rise in commodity prices, but the supply of dollars remains on track with historical trends.
Elections, we usually have this problem. And after elections, this problem goes away, because after election, the risks disappear, election risks disappear, and therefore investors are more willing to invest in the country.
Gashora, however, noted the need to make it more valuable to hold the shilling vis-a-vis the dollar. Caroline Jenga for Lunchtime News.
And the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has agreed with the Bakers Association of Zimbabwe on measures to stabilize the rising prices of bread. The measures include allowing members of the Bakers Association to access their full requirements of foreign exchange through the weekly foreign exchange auctions for the importation of inputs and procurement of fuel for the distribution of bread across the country. Here are the details of the story and much more from across the continent.
The price of bread will be adjusted on account of economic fundamentals that include global price trends of inputs and the movement of the foreign currency exchange rate. Zimbabwe has seen a wave of price increases for basic commodities over the past few months amid rising inflation due to internal and external factors. A standard loaf of bread is now costing up to $1.86. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has also caused supply bottlenecks as the country imports 65% of its wheat requirements from Ukraine. Last month, the government lowered tariffs on the importation of basic commodities to curb soaring prices. Meanwhile, the World Bank has approved $143 million financing to help the vulnerable citizens of Somalia overcome the escalating drought and food insecurity conditions across the country. The additional financing will expand coverage of the parent project by 20,000 households. It will also provide emergency cash transfers to 338,000 households, adding to the 168,000 households who are already receiving emergency cash transfers from the Shock Responsive Safety Net for Locust Response Project. The World Bank is leveraging partnerships with humanitarian actors in order to alleviate the situation. Nearly 70% of the population is living below the international poverty line. Finally, South Africa has published its latest consumer price index, showing that annual consumer price inflation has broken through the upper limit of the Reserve Bank target. Finally, South Africa has published its latest consumer price index, showing that annual consumer price inflation has broken through the upper limit of the Reserve Bank's target range. Inflation has been recorded at 6.5% as of May 2022. Transport, food and non-alcoholic beverages account for half of the annual rate, with sharp price increases recorded in both categories. Diesel prices jumped by 8.1% between April and May, taking the annual rate to over 45%. The average price of a litre of diesel now stands at $1.48 per litre. Petrol prices have increased by 27% since May 2021.
On the international scene, Twitter is trialing a new feature allowing users to share notes as long as 2,500 words. The social media platform normally limits posts to 280 characters. Twitter said the move was a response to seeing people use the platform to post pictures of longer announcements and steer followers to outside newsletters. Details of this and more in the news from across the globe.
The test will run for 2 months and involve a small group of writers in Canada, Ghana, the UK and US. The new feature aims to keep audiences in the Twitter ecosystem, with readers able to see a headline and access the longer note by clicking on a link. The move follows Twitter's purchase last month, Year of Revenue, a Dutch newsletter startup. On Wednesday, it said it was folding revenue into the new Notes product, which allows writers to embed GIFs, photos and other features into long-form essays that can be read on and off Twitter. Users will also be able to edit their notes after they have been published. Elsewhere, Elon Musk said Tesla's new factories in Germany and the US are losing billions of dollars due to battery shortages and supply disruptions in China. COVID-19 lockdowns in China this year, including Shanghai, where Tesla has a huge factory, have made it increasingly difficult for manufacturers to operate. In recent weeks, Musk has been warning of job cuts at the firm. Musk said the so-called gigafactories have been struggling to increase production since they were opened earlier this year. Tough restrictions were imposed on the movement of people and material, including the financial, manufacturing and shipping hub of Shanghai. Finally, the head of International Energy Agency has warned that Russia may stop supplying gas to Europe this winter. In recent weeks, several European countries say they received significantly less Russian gas than they expected. Russian officials deny its deliberate Russian Russian officials deny it's deliberate and have blamed technical issues. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Europe imported about 40% of its natural gas from Russia, but that figure has now fallen to about 20%. Across Europe, shortfalls in gas supply continued to be reported. Last month, European countries agreed to protect themselves from the volatility of gas prices by filling up their storage facilities. Terry Njenga, Lunchtime News.
It's time to get sporty now. Serena Williams' comeback continued as she and Ons Jabeur reached the Eastbourne doubles semi-finals with an entertaining win over Shuko Oyama and Chan Hao Ching. The two will face Serbia's Alexandra Krunic and Poland's Magda Linette for a place in the final.
More comfortable up at the net today.
The American great, playing just her second match in 12 months, produced a strong serving performance in a 6-2-6-4 win over the double specialists. She and Jabal saved all 9 in the break point they faced.
Here.
Oh, good hands there.
Williams has been given a single World Cup into Wimbledon, which begins on Monday, but joined forces with Tunisian single world number 3 to gain grass court practice. The two did not face the breakpoint into opening set, winning 5 games in the row that take 5-1 lead before serving out the set. They will face Serbian Alexandra Krunic and Poland Magda Linette for a place in the final. For Sports News, I'm King Orimwangi.
Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate you tuning in to KBC Lunchtime News. More news on our website at www.kbc.co.ke. I am Nissy Imano. Lucy Maura has been our sign language interpreter. Good afternoon. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.